All right, so if you would just look at the ditto that I gave you that says sine A equals cosine B review at the top. Okay, so I'm looking at the first question, and if you read this, it says which trig function or which trig equation is always true for this triangle. So these kinds of questions will only, for the most part, no, I should say, they will only occur when we've got a right triangle. Now, you know that all the angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees. So if this one's 90, that means angle C and angle B together should be 90, right? So like, for example, let's say this was 40 degrees. That would mean this would be 50 degrees, right? Because 40 and 50 is 90, plus that 90 is 180. Okay, so we say that angle C, and you may want to write this down, angle C plus angle A are going to equal 90 degrees, okay, because they are complementary, meaning that they add up to 90 degrees. So when that happens, then we have this trig ratio that we're talking about. So basically what this means is if you look at any of the leftover acute angles in a right triangle, not this one, the cosine of this one will equal the sine of this one. Okay, so let me just write that down for you. So then the sine of A will equal the cosine of C. Now another option would be the cosine of A would equal the sine of C. Okay, so the rule is if you have a sine here, the other angle will have a cosine. If you start with a cosine here, the other angle will have a sine. Okay, and then basically all you're going to do is look for either this answer choice or this answer choice. And you should see that that's going to be choice 1. Okay, just make sure that you're taking notes. So if you want, pause the video, take notes, write it down, unpause, and then we'll go to the next question. Okay, so if you remember in the first question, I said that you would always have a right triangle, and let's say that would be my right angle, and it says which expression is equal to the sine of 30. So let's just pretend that this was 30. If that's 30 and this is 90, wouldn't this be 60, right? Because all the angles in a triangle add up to 180. So this would be 60 degrees right there. Okay, so then remember it's asking what is, equivalent to the sine of 30. Well, that would be the cosine of the other angle that's not the right angle in the triangle. And then that would be choice 3. Okay, so again, if this is that angle, then it would be cosine of the other angle. Okay? Now again, just make sure that you're taking notes on your little worksheet that I gave you. Okay, so let's look at the next one. So we have a scalene triangle. And remember, you studied scalene triangle just means that all the sides in that triangle are a different length. And it says if scalene triangle XYZ is similar to triangle QRS. But look at this. From this triangle right here, they're telling you X is 90 degrees. So you have a scalene triangle, that's a right triangle. Okay, so all that means is I'm going to draw a picture because I think it'll be easier to see it. So here, I'm just drawing all different lengths of sides in that triangle. Now the angle X has to be 90 degrees, so I'm putting that right there. And then I'm going to go up, I'm going to make that Y, and I'm going to make that Z. Now there's another triangle that's similar to that one. You can make it bigger or you can make it smaller. That's completely up to you. and it is called triangle QRS. Now just be careful because here X was the right angle. So since X comes first here in these three letters, then Q also comes first here in these three letters. So what that means is X and Q will be in the same spot in their respective triangles. So in other words, I'm going to have Q right there. Okay, this is first, this is first. So that means they correspond to one another. Okay, now if you, let me change my color here so you can see this a little bit better. Now look at Y is in the middle and so is R. So since Y is up top here, then R has to go up top there. Okay, so I am going to, hold on one second, there's my R. Okay, and then obviously that's S. All right, so it says which equation is always true? Now, remember, we're not going to be looking at anything that has an X or a Q in it when we do this ratio because X and Q are right angles. So I'm going to just take a look here. There's no X or Q here, so far so good. No X or Q here, but there is a Q here. So that means that choice 3 is out. Okay. All right, now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look and see if my angles match up. So for example, right here, I have got, all right, so actually let me interrupt my train of thought. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the triangle that is on the left there, and I'm going to say, I'm just going to say, well, the sine of Y can equal the cosine of Z, correct? Let me do the same thing on the triangle on the right. So I'm going to write the sine of R would equal the cosine of S. Okay, so again, remember, the sine of this angle can equal the cosine of this one. The sine of this angle can equal the cosine of that one. So that's what I just wrote right down here. Now remember, when you have similar triangles, even though the lengths of their sides are not the same, their angle measures are. So let me kind of reiterate and restate what I just said. What that means is angle Y is equal to angle R, and angle Z is equal to angle S. The lengths of the sides are different, but the angle measures in any similar set of triangles should be the same. Okay? So now if I look at my answer choices, I don't, if I'm looking at this first answer choice right here, first of all, this should say, if this says sine, that should say cosine. They should be opposites of each other, right? And here, this says cosine, well then that should be sine. And that doesn't say it either. So by process of elimination, boom, 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 boom. And there's our answer choice. Let me explain why. Okay, so this says the sine of R. So what I've got right here. It says the cosine of Z, but this is the cosine of S. But look up here. Z and S are in the same exact spot in our triangles, which means Z is equal to S. So that means I can take this S and replace it to with its equivalent angle, which would be Z. And that's how they're getting that. Alrighty, so if you turn the page, look at the next one. What I want you to do is do me a favor and just pause the video and you try this one. And when you're done, unpause and see if you got the right answer, okay? Alrighty, there's your answer choice 2. And I drew the triangle for you just so you can see. Remember, the cosine of one of these will equal the sine of the other one. And since they gave you cosine of T, then it has to be the sine of C. Okay, last question. So what I want you to do is the same thing as the last one. I want you to just pause me, read the question, take your time, and see what you can come up with as far as an answer is concerned. Okay, well, I'm looking at this and I see that D is first and C is first. So that means these two angles are equal to each other. And then I see that G is, O. I'm going to put an arrow there, O and A. Those are both second. So that means those two angles are equal to each other. Okay, now it says which one is equivalent to the sine of D. So the sine of D will equal, it's got to be a cosine, right? Because if I have a sine here, I have to have a cosine there. And then if I have a D here, then the other letter would have to be an O, right? Oops, need my pen there. Okay, but how? I don't see that as an option. So remember, O, look, it's equivalent to A. So what we can do then is we can just take this O and turn it into an A, because they're equivalent to each other, those two, right? And then that would be your answer choice, choice 1. Okay, again, just make sure that you're writing all of this down. And if there's still anything that you don't understand, when I see you, we'll go over everything.